I'm John Holzapfel, retired science teacher, but also an oyster grower. And what you see behind me is where we grow our oysters. You're out near Orient, New York, and we're in a tiny creek in that area, and we've been growing oysters here for 3 or 4 years. And we're on the market. You can find us at the Grand Central Station Oyster Bar. We all sort of retired around the same time, so it became a convenient thing to do. Reg had been in, how do you say it?
Yeah, sure.
Air freight business, and he had just retired once or twice from that. I had just retired from teaching science. Lyle is a chemical engineer, Procter & Gamble, and he had retired. And Frank was the Australian Trade Commissioner and had an office up in Rockefeller Center, and he had just retired. So we needed something to keep ourselves busy. This is a couple of hours every day, every other day, and that's what we've been doing for a few years, and finally we've got enough of them so we can continue to make a market out of it. What they're doing is separating the oysters from small ones, large ones, and they're counting them out in hundreds. In the wine industry, they use a word called terroir, which means the earth in which the wine vineyards are growing. And each locality has a specialty and gives a special taste and variety to their wines. The same thing happens in oysters. There's only one species of oyster along the whole East Coast. There's the same species, whether you get a well-fleet oyster, an oyster ponds oyster, or our Virginia oyster. It's the exact same species. The difference is the water in which it grows. The water tends to give the different qualities to the shell, to the muscle inside, to the food. So that our oysters, as you can see, if you look around the creek, there's no construction, there's no houses on the creek, and the water is relatively shallow, so the water moves in and out 4 times a day. This brings brand new, fresh, clean water into the oysters with plenty of food, brings it back out, so there's a constant replenishing of food and clean water. And that's what gives our oysters what we think is a superior taste. What's going to happen now is K&B Seafood is going to drive these back to their shop in East Northport. And then from there, they're going to be distributed along the whole East Coast. Boston, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, and even Japan. Our oysters go all the way to Japan. So it's a matter of just, they're our distributors, and they send them out to places across the country.
My name is Tom Kehoe. I'm partner and president of K&B Seafood in East Northport. We're a dealer and distributor in varieties of shellfish, primarily oysters. We're probably the largest dealer and distributor I know on the East Coast, maybe in the U.S. We send a truck out to Red once, sometimes twice a week to Orient, which is about 70 some odd miles each way. Go right down to the waterfront in Orient at the Oyster Pond, which is also the name of his oyster, where he grows them. We make prior arrangements, tell him how many we want. He harvests them, gets them ready for us, and my driver goes out in a refrigerated truck, picks them up, and we bring them back here and put them in our walk-in and then redistribute them. He's checking to make sure that all of the oysters that we're going to sell to this customer, this order, are good, that there's no dead ones, broken ones, chipped. You hear that hollow sound? That hollow sound means that, give me that one again, Eddie. That hollow sound means that that oyster somewhere along the line got chipped and he lost its fluid, and you can't eat that anymore. But if we just indiscriminately put it in the bag, the end user, one of our Grand Central Oyster Bar, someone else would get a dead oyster. The Oyster Bar to me is probably my most important customer. They are the bellwether precinct in politics. They're the bellwether precinct in the oyster business. They are a great sounding board. They're very willing to try something new. They'll quickly tell you it's no good and why, but if it's good, they will also want more. And because they're one of the largest restaurants in the United States, and in the top 10 in New York City, I think in the top 5 in volume, everybody wants to get their oyster on their menu.
Hi, my name is Peter Fu. I'm the executive sous chef here at the Grand Central Oyster Bar and Restaurant here in Grand Central Station, New York City. The usual way of people eating an oyster would start with the oyster, which I have an oyster pond right here, and they would take a lemon, squeeze it inside, They can take a little bit of horseradish, put it inside, a couple dashes of Tabasco, if you like it a little spicy, and add a little cocktail sauce. Now, what I like to do is take the whole cup, put it near my mouth, and suck it down. Or, if you don't like that, you can take the fork and then slurp it. But generally, a little bit of each is a really good way of eating oyster. Grand Central Oyster Bar is a restaurant that's been around since 1913. In the inception of the Grand Central, we've been here from the beginning. We serve mostly, I would say 95% seafood, and our clientele ranges from Europeans, tourists, Japanese, to the blue-collar, white-collar worker that sit out here at our counters for a soup, a beer, or a simple oyster stew and pan roast. The way we decided upon the oyster was a really easy decision for us. With our long-standing relationship with K&B Seafood, they introduced the oyster to us, and it was a great oyster. It was a beautiful oyster, great tasting oyster, and it's local, which is the number one priority for us, whereas freshness comes into play. Since it's in the North Fork, it's only a few hours away from us, so it was an easy decision choosing Oyster Pond as a selection of oyster here at the Oyster Bar.